Okay, let's call the meeting to order at 4:40 p.m. And starting with roll call. Can you start us out, Brian?
Sure.
Do you have me now?
Yeah. Brian Milkey, Union Township, Isabella County, State of Michigan.
Hunter, Mount Pleasant, Isabella County, Michigan.
Coyne, Isabella County, Union Township.
Big,
Sarjeet Chaudhary, Union Township.
Big, Union Township, Isabella County.
Robert Bacon, Union Township, Isabella County.
Who's left?
Town.
Who is, can I get a motion and support for the agenda?
I move that we support the agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Fig, support by Coyne to approve tonight's agenda. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, the same. The motion passed and the agenda is approved. Moving on to agenda item number 4, approval of the June 15th meeting minutes.
I'll move to accept the minutes as presented.
I second it.
Got a motion by Milky, support by Chowdhury to approve the June 15th, 2021 regular meeting minutes. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, the same. And the meeting minutes are approved. Moving on to item 5, presentations. We have Chris Rowley with the Mount Pleasant Area Convention and Visitors Bureau. Welcome. And what do you want to introduce her, Rodney, please?
Well, thank you. Chris Rowley is here. She is the head of the Mount Pleasant Area Convention and Visitors Bureau. She's here with us to give us a background on what the Bureau has been doing on behalf of our East and West DDA districts and the township. And very pleased to work with her on a regular basis on various projects. So the floor is yours, Chris.
All right, I feel the same. So thank you for anytime we can partner and work together. It's always great. So thanks for having me to talk about the Mount Pleasant Convention and Visitors Bureau. Just to give a brief overview, I always try to give a little bit of background on what we do for the community. So we're a destination marketing organization. For Isabella County is our service area. So the purpose for us is to market and develop the city and county brand experience to targeted overnight visitor audiences for economic growth and quality of place. We are funded by a 5% lodging tax or assessment, it's not a tax, on Isabella County lodging facilities. And we focus on improving tourism, community pride, and then marketing and sales of the Mount Pleasant area. So we focus on promoting the leisure market. That includes outdoor recreation that we have, our arts and culture, our food and shopping, our golf events, which are finally taking place again, which is great to see. We also promote Isabella County for sports. We help bring in and sponsor and service sporting tournaments that come to the area, as well as meetings. So meetings have finally opened back up. So that's great to see. And so being centrally located within the state of Michigan, the lower peninsula of the state of Michigan, we do a lot of meetings in sports. And so happy to see those returning. In addition, obviously marketing, we have a website, meetmtp.com. We have a community calendar of events. We do a visitor guide, which is distributed at MDOT Welcome Centers, Ohio Turnpikes. We do blogs, digital marketing, social media, partnership with Pure Michigan, billboards, TV, sponsorships, and networking. One of the new area focus for us too is also helping manage the destination and improve tourism in Isabella County through destination development. So things we've been able to do have been irrigation of fields. We help contribute to the lights at the Little League. We've helped with rims and equipment at Maury Courts. In the sports realm, in the general realm, we've helped improve canoe launches at Deerfield, some bike repair stations within the city parks. So those are just types of things, but certainly continue to meet to see what other projects we can do moving forward. One of the other things we also do is branding. So working on getting the Meet Here community brand out, the Meet Mount Pleasant brand, and help that community pride so that our locals are proud and talking about all the awesome things we have to offer in this community. We also partner, as Rodney mentioned. So we've partnered with Union Township, so thank you for that. We've done the entry banners out on Pickard. I'm involved with Mark and the Chippewa River Master Plan. Then I've met with a couple of you on potential of maybe some trails moving forward and seeing if that's a possibility. So, or if there's others. So nothing's off the table, always open for discussion on different partnership opportunities. Just to give a little bit of update on 2020 for the Bureau, COVID obviously affected the tourism industry. Travel was shut down for a period of time, and we reduced the CVB's budget by 45% in 2020. So some of the negativity numbers, the hard part, we were down 30% in room nights for 2020. We were down 15% in hotel occupancy. We lost 18 sporting events. We had 21 meetings that were booked through the CVB that were canceled. And then our assessments that come into the Bureau were down 36.5%. So 2020 took its big toll. So what did we do in 2020? We shifted to supporting local businesses. We need the local unique things that make Mount Pleasant who we are. And then also shifted to promoting outdoor recreation. We wanted to be there for the community. So we created Reopening Safely page on the CVB site. We help with businesses with the social distancing stickers. We created a hospitality promise flyer, some retail flyer for businesses that we partnered with other entities in the community. It wasn't just us, but we shifted, we have a local town and gown group, and we shifted that to how can we work together for COVID locally. We created a restaurant COVID page, and that actually was one of our top pages of 2020, trying to give updates of what restaurants were doing, takeout, delivery, that type of thing as the world was shifting daily. We created coloring pages, puzzles, and the good news. So we were still able to host 10 sporting events, and we sponsored 6 of those. So Special Olympics, for example, was virtual. We still sponsored that virtual event. We did a virtual tour. Instead of bringing meeting planners in to see our area, we did a virtual tour and went to them. So showcasing them virtually working with Mac TV. We collaborated with CMU alumni and hosted and sponsored some of their virtual events. And then we did some live remotes as part of our partnership with CFX and the Meet Here tour for that community pride piece and promoting downtown, the CWC, Deerfield, Maury Courts, etc. And then we did our banquet that we do when we honor someone who's impacted tourism in Isabella County. We do that annually. We did that virtual last year, and we honored the McGurk family. We still maintained our social media presence, and our Facebook and Instagram were actually up compared to 2019. So people were still looking for resources and what was going on, and our website views were up 12%. But like I mentioned, some of those COVID pages, we became a resource for the community. Other top pages were outdoor rec, things to do, Chippewa River, family fun, golf, and patio dining. People were looking for outdoor dining as well. So 21 is better than we anticipated. We didn't know what that looked like, and I never did find that crystal ball. I was looking for one and never did find it. So if anyone finds it for 22, I'd still love to see it. But events and traveling are happening. We promote, we did this year a local digital video series, so highlighting local businesses around the community and showcasing those on our social media. We're still doing partnerships with CFX and that Community Pride. We're actually going to be Thursday. They're going to be in Nelson Park for National Hammock Day and hammocking in a park. And then we partnered with the tribe this year as well. We're very excited for that. So we have 5 participating lodging properties. And if you stay at one of those, they have casino packages, and we're giving $25 in free play. So continuing to have conversations with other entities in the community. But that's some of the stuff that we're working on already for 21. And so just to finish, I'd like to say, tourism is the gateway to economic development, and the CVB is the front door. So we try to create a positive and showcase the positive experience that are for our visitors. You know, everyone, if you choose to live here, you're a visitor first, and you come check out the community. So we want to take care of them. And then also, I always try to put a plug out if you're in conversations and think that the CVB can play a part and help improve Isabella County and tourism, let me know, and we're happy to be a part of the community's growth. So thank you for all you do, and thanks for your support and time today.
Thank you, Chris, for that
Take
Thank you.
questions.
That was a nice presentation.
Thanks.
How did the Special Olympics look for the upcoming year? Do you have any?
Yeah, so Special Olympics just happened this past weekend. So I haven't got a report of it. It was scaled down much more. We were still a sponsor again this year. I don't know how much hotel impact. It's usually one of our largest events of the year. They had a scaled down event and then some bocce ball the second day. So it was like more of a one day and then bocce ball the second day. So still able to host it, just a different feel for 21.
Yes, Bacon here. I'm producing a play at the Broadway Theater, and it won't be until April of next year. Is that something that you could help me promote?
Absolutely, yeah. So meetmtp.com, we have a community calendar right on there. So we love to have events. If you know of events, there's a button you can submit an event, and that'll populate right on our website. And then that's the information we use a lot on our social media and digital marketing, is talking about the things to do in the upcoming events. So certainly.
Okay. CBD button.
Meet, it's MEET, MTP.com. meetmtp.com. And I would encourage, you know, you or the businesses and organizations that you work with, the hashtag #MeetMTP is what we're using for Community Pride as well. So if you're doing different posts, you can use that hashtag #MeetMTP, and we'll see that, and we can help share that stuff as well.
I'll just comment, Chris, based on a recent meeting that you and I had when I was reviewing the packet for today, as we look at future plans for the West and East DDAs, that part of the plan it's not approved at this point. So let me disclaimer that. But in that was included way signage. So I thought you'd like to hear that.
I love to hear that. We did a Destination Next survey in 2019. It was presented to my board in, I February of 2020, and then you all know what happened the month after that. But what was in that was wayfinding signage need. Certainly as visitors and local businesses and residents said that is a need in our community. So I'd love to be a part of that discussion with Union Township and with the city and make it a community project.
Any more comments or questions for Chris?
Just thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Chris, I appreciate it. Tom Keequam here. You know, I work with the Saginaw Chippewa tribe also.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you guys' website looks fantastic. I think I've always supported the collaboration between the East and West DDA and the CVB. So really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, I feel the same. So thank you.
Keep up the good work.
Thanks. All right. Have a good night. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in.
Yep. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, Rodney, moving on. Agenda item 6, public comment.
We do not have any members of the public with us today.
Okay, let's move on to agenda item 7, reports with accounts payable for June. That's something Sherry can walk us through.
Yep.
Please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll start off with the check register for the East DDA. We have a payment to Consumers Energy for $596.35. That's just a normal payment that was for June electricity for the street lights on Pickard. And then we have a payment to Black Electric for $1,450. That payment was for installing new gateway banners out by the overpass, and then also installing new banners along Pickard. And then we have a payment to Charter Township of Union for the second quarter water bill. This was for the irrigation along Pickard. The amount was $4,347.15. And then we have a payment to Goner Lawn Care. This was for lawn mowing on Pickard in June. The amount was $3,625. And then we have a payment to MMI for June also. This was for maintaining the grounds and cleaning up around the park benches, emptying the trash out there in the trash receptacles and so forth. That was for $575. And then we have a payment to Pleasant Time Herb Farm for hanging the baskets this spring, watering baskets, and weeding the grounds around the flowers that are planted there on Pickard. And that amount, that check was for $8,397. And then we have a payment to Price Mini Storage. This is an annual payment of $600, which is for the lease on the storage unit that the EDA has. And then we have a payment to Teelan Turf Irrigation for $8,983.77. And this is to start up the irrigation this spring along Pickard, and also some miscellaneous repairs that came up after it was started up. And then we have a payment to the Union Township Fire Fund for $81,150. This is for fire protection. This is to the fire fund for fire protection in the East DDA. And then we have a payment for $300 to Yo and Yo. This is a fee that they charge to do the audit presentation at a past board meeting. And then we have another payment to consumers for $620.72. That was for part of June and part of July. So your total accounts payable for the East DDA this month is $110,644.99. Are there any questions on any of those payments?
Just one with regards to the irrigation startup and repair. I think you said it, but basically that none of the repairs that were required were something unusual. They're just standard and wear and tear.
It was unusual this year in large part because of the interchange work that was done. That did a substantial amount of damage to our irrigation system in and around the bridge and that area around the interchange. So beyond that, there was unfortunately more damage than usual, I think, overall. But most of the additional cost is related to the interchange.
And I was asking for that exact purpose. I was kind of curious. So that includes all that repair, then that interchange work. So
right, we will see a bill from Block Electric. There was also some electrical work that need to be done. So we'll see that probably in our next batch. But yes, it did include that.
thank you.
Any more questions or comments? And again, because they're separate bank accounts, I'd like a motion to approve the East separate from the West. So if we can get a motion for those payables, please.
Move that we accept the payables as presented and pay the disbursement of $110,644.99.
A second.
I have a motion by Mr. Fig, support by Mr. Coyne to approve the East DDA check register. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, the same. Hearing no opposition, the motion is approved and the check registers is approved. Thank you. Sure, you want to go continue on the West, please?
Yep. Okay, so moving on to the West DDA, we have a payment to Union Township Fire Fund, and this is also for the fire protection in the West DDA for $59,515.99. And then we have a $300 payment to Yo and Yo for the audit presentation that was done at a past board meeting. So for the West DDA, we have a total accounts payable disbursement of $59,815.99. Are there any questions on those two payments?
I would move that we accept the check register as presented in the amount of $59,815.99.
I second it.
I have a motion by Fig, support by Chowdhury. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, the same. Hearing no opposition, the motion is approved. And let's move on to 7B, the June financial reports, please.
Okay, for the East DDA, I'll review the revenue and expenditure report. The revenues, you'll see the revenues are coming in at about 89% of budget at this time. And then in the expenditure area, all of the payables that you just approved tonight are posted here in the appropriate line items. And the total expenditures are coming in at about 16% of budget. And moving on to the balance sheet, we have total assets in the fund of about $2 million. And the ending fund balance is just coming in at a little less than $2 million. Are there any questions on the financials for the East DDA? And any of the detail there? If not, I'll move on to the West DDA. In the revenue and expenditure report, the revenues are coming in at about 102% of the budget. The administration is currently working on a budget amendment for the East and West DDA. So we'll have a little bit of an adjustment here in the budget. And then for the expenditures are currently coming in at 1.7% of the budget. We have some projects budgeted that have, we haven't been billed for yet. And then moving on to the balance sheet, you'll see that total assets are about 1.5 million. And then the fund balance is approximately 1.5 million also. Are there any questions on that? If there's no questions, thank you.
Thank you, Sherry.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Sherry. So let's let the record show the June financials were presented, received, and filed. Moving on to 7C. Page 15, you have the board member expiration matrix. Do we have any updates on the vacant seat?
No, I did meet with someone this morning that has some interest. We'll see if that pans out or not. It was initial discussion. Otherwise, I've not had any other bites. And as I mentioned in the past, Bill Houck has also, been beating the bushes on that, and I'm not aware of any from his efforts. But again, anybody here, if you think of someone that could serve, thanks, Tom.
Yep, thank you.
Seems like an exciting time to be on this board, to be honest.
Yeah.
You're right, Brian, you're right.
Moving on to 7D in the agenda, the 2020 annual report of the EDA activities. What do you have there, Rodney?
So this is the required annual synopsis of your activities. It's required per the state act that we work under. And this has been posted on the township's website under the Economic Development Authority page. This is the subject of our upcoming informational meeting in August. Per the state act, we have to hold 2 informational meetings where we essentially provide this information and answer any questions from the public or from the other taxing jurisdictions. The primary other taxing jurisdiction is the county, and last year a county representative attended our first meeting. Anyway, this basically lays out what we did last year. I think it is a remarkable set of achievements that considering the challenges of 2020 and COVID. If you page 19 of your packet, we have a list of accomplishments there, including the replacement of the LED lighting under the overpass, and of course our capital improvements program, which really provided the foundation for what we have on the agenda tonight, which is our updates to our DDA development plans, and then beyond just that list of accomplishments, you can see some of the projects that are ongoing in various forms, either budgeted or being worked on. So this is really looking back. It's kind of a neat meeting agenda today because this is a looking back at last year, and then coming up next we'll be looking ahead with our development plan review, looking ahead at next year. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about the 2020 report.
So pump station number 1 is scheduled for this year?
We are actively pursuing it. The Public Services Department is moving ahead. I guess I can report on that in that we have made an offer that was accepted for that property that you gave us authorization for last month. There'll be more details forthcoming. That's still, like I said, that's in process. I'll be walking through that property this week along with Kim Smith. But it's actively being pursued to get that pump station underway.
Wonderful. That was not a cheap one.
No.
But that was a good development to have that parcel to help maybe get this project for pump station number 1 off dead center. So congratulations. I hope it continues and we can complete that purchase.
Yep. Thank you. Any other questions about the report? All right. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Rodney.
Yes, thank you.
So moving on to agenda item number 8, new business. Got the request for action on the approval of the fire protection services. Want to walk us through that, please?
Yes, so you have our request for board action dated the 14th of July. This is something that you have taken action on every so often in the past. The city, the township has an agreement with the city of Mount Pleasant for the Mount Pleasant Fire Department to provide fire protection services to the township, and that of course has a cost associated with it. We have a fire millage to pay for that cost, and a portion of that fire millage is captured by the east and the west DDA districts, and so there has been an agreement in place to essentially share that revenue that you're capturing back to the township to ensure that the township has the funding needed to provide fire protection to our DDA districts. And you, in fact, as part of your actions tonight, you saw that annual transfer of those funds that essentially provide for that protection in each of those DDA districts. So this agreement that's before you tonight is a foundation for how that happens. There has to be an agreement between each DDA district and the township in order to facilitate that. The previous agreement was expiring, and so we looked at previous agreements had an expiration date that was tied to the expiration of the city contract. That is not necessary, and actually can create a problem if they're allowed to expire and not renewed. So when we looked at this, we realized there's no need to tie this to the city contract. Fire protection services are an ongoing obligation of the township, and so this agreement should really be ongoing as well to reflect that. What you have before you is a separate agreement for each district. The language is identical, and it essentially carries forward indefinitely as long as the township is providing fire protection services. Then the EDA would be reimbursing from that captured funds from the fire millage. That's the core element of the agreement. Fairly straightforward. And as I said, it is a separate agreement for each district. We have included in our request for board action one motion, one resolution that simply references both agreements, and we would recommend that they be approved. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about them.
So this agreement will be ongoing. We won't be revisiting this as far as passing a motion to approve payments to the fire department or to the township for fire protection.
So the agreement would be ongoing. Actually, you would continue to do exactly what you did tonight in terms of approving the annual disbursement as you did tonight as part of the paying the bills. You also would be approving the annual budget where those funds are budgeted. So you would have the ability to take a look at this each year to see the amounts that are budgeted, to see the amounts that are dispersed, and to take action on that those things on an annual basis, both for the budget and the disbursement. The agreement itself, though, would be ongoing. As I said, as long as the township continues to provide fire protection services that need to be paid for.
Sounds like a good thing for organization, keeping things running. Sounds like a good plan.
And if I understood the agreement correctly, there's no dollar amounts on purpose because it's scaled to what is captured from the fire fund, which really kind of answered my question that I posed last month that Sherry answered in the email today. So it makes perfect sense why we wouldn't see funds coming back from the feds on this, because we're capturing that money. It's intended for a specific use.
That is correct, yes.
So there's a formula that's used to determine the amount that the shared percentage of the township's DDAs would provide? Or is it just how are the numbers determined for the portion that East and West pay?
Sherry, would you like to answer that question?
Sure, I can answer that. We keep track of all of the captured amounts, the amounts that are captured from the fire fund millages for the East and the West DDA. We keep track of that. That's revenue to the East and West DDA. And at the end of every tax season, we know how much that amount is. And that's the amount that the East and West DDA give back to the fire fund, because That's this exact amount that was captured
Okay, all
for
right,
the East and West DDA.
okay.
And that changes every year because the tax values change every year.
Sure. Okay, thanks, Sherry.
Mhm.
And
You're
if we
welcome.
do our job on this board, we'll increase those revenues hopefully. But it's 2.5 mils, I believe, correct? Is what we captured for fire?
2.25.
I'm sorry,
It was 2.0, but now it's 2.25.
2.5. Okay, thank you. Well, nobody's jumping in, so I mean, this makes perfect sense to me. So I'd be happy to make a motion to approve the fire protection services agreements with the township for the East and the West Downtown Development Authority districts.
Or
Second by Bacon.
A motion by Milky, and I think Coyne was quickest on the draw for the support. So let's say motion by Brian, support by Coyne to approve the fire protection services agreement. Request for EDA action, board action, motion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye,
Opposed, the same. Hearing no opposition, the motion is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rodney. And do we want to go on to item 9, pending business? Item A, East and West DDA District Development Tax Increment Financing Plan updates. Please.
So thank you. I'll turn the time over in just a moment to our consultants that are with us. Just like to congratulate you as a board for the work that you have done on these projects, especially in the foundational elements you really see in the draft West DDA plan and draft implementation strategy that you have in your packet. The result of that foundational work and the efforts that you've made. I appreciate the good work of our consultants. They've done excellent work for us on this project. As was noted, we have the West DDA plan before you. The East DDA plan will be coming, and I think the consultants can speak to that a little bit more. They're still taking care of some details, and we were working with the county on some things that we can talk about with that. But I think for right now, I'll turn the time over to our consultants.
All right, thank you. Elena Moeller-Younger here with CIB Planning. Thanks for having us this evening. Carmen and I will be going through, as Rodney said, the West DDA plan draft and implementation strategy draft that I believe is located in your board packet this evening. And I'm going to go ahead and start with the implementation strategy, which I think actually comes first. These two documents will be separate, but sort of interweave with each other, interconnect. The implementation strategy, as you'll see, I'll explain in a moment, is one a PDF, and then the DDA plan draft is another PDF. So just to give a little bit of background, this supporting really the development plan, that implementation strategy has that matrix of projects, both planned and proposed. So you'll see, those are probably familiar to you guys. Many of them have come from some of the planned projects that you guys have in place and proposed projects. And again, this is intended to be located outside of the plan in this workbook. So a new adoption process is not needed when future cost estimates are generated. And the matrix of projects, you'll see 14 different category descriptions within the narrative of that implementation strategy. And then in that actual matrix or spreadsheet, you'll see, those project categories, the names and descriptions, their priorities, timeframes, and cost range estimates when those are, once those are available, you can fill that information in. And of course, status notes. And again, I want to say too, it's important that this matrix is intended to be a live document that can be updated as needed. And the cost figures that are associated with those, we're not locked in on those. We basically used some of our estimates from earlier work and also what you guys have already planned to identify those cost range estimates based on the TIF plans that you have also in that DDA plan draft. And so I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Carmen. He's going to actually walk us through the DDA plan draft itself, and then we can answer questions.
Thank you, Elena. Is it evening or afternoon? I think it's both right now. It's good to see you. And let me switch over to my document so I can have it right in front of me. Okay. I'm getting there. Okay. So as you can see, we have drafted the plan, and in the beginning there's acknowledgements where we have all of the members of this group, and that's going to be on there, and also the township board. And I think right now we've just got I don't know that we have everybody on there yet. No, we don't. So we're going to be adding all the names of this board on there. And we give a general overview of what the DDA is about. And, you know, just to give anybody reading this kind of an introduction. Okay, if you can bear with me for 1 second here.
And as Carmen's looking at that real quick, I did want to mention the acknowledgement page information I received from you, Rodney, so that's actually already updated. This version of the draft does not have all the board members listed properly. So I did receive your email. Thank you for sending that information. So that's been taken care of.
Thank you.
Thanks, Elena. So the plan is really broken into 2 sections. It's all one plan, but it's called the development plan and then the tax increment financing plan. So in the development plan, we list out what the legal requirements are, and they're very specific. And as I mentioned to you previously, we want to answer them, but we also don't want to put conjectures in there. This is what we might be thinking about. We're only going to put in there what we absolutely know at this point in time. So we talk about the boundaries and, you know, talk about existing land uses, which are shown on the map and the different types of land uses. We've indicated in here that for demolition, because they want to know if you're going to demolish anything or acquire real estate or relocate people, all of those things are in here. And what we typically do is we write, look, we don't know what those will be until each project comes up, but when we know them, we can share that information. So that really pops up during the implementation strategy. So if we're talking to the Department of Treasury and we have new projects going through and they're interested in finding out exactly what we have going on, we can share the implementation strategy with them, as opposed to amending the plan each time we do something. So that, as you know, is how we want to move forward here, and it makes the most sense. Now, this list under the proposed improvements in the West DDA, you've seen this before, we've talked through it. And a question that keeps coming up over and over again with other communities is they've asked me, well, we have this range budgeted for this particular topic, you know, public buildings and spaces, but we actually are going to be putting 1.5 million into that over the next 3 years. So is that a problem? Do we have to amend our plan? And my response is no. The only thing the Act asks us for is to give an idea of what it might be. So we don't absolutely have to fit into these dollar amounts. What we do have to fit in to is any of the projects that we have moving forward will have to fit into one of these 14 categories that we have identified. The dollar amounts are just estimates and don't really matter. It's kind of our guesstimate as to where the money might be used. The next, if you go to page, I think it's page 7, once again, we're going to talk about the construction or stages of construction, open space that might be contemplated, you know, any if we're going to buy land, lease, sell, all these different things that we might do with these specific projects, they want more detail on. But at this point in time, until once again, we have those projects in front of us, we really don't know how to answer that. So we've indicated through most of these that we're going to follow all the appropriate regulations. We're going to, when the time comes and we have to do these things at that point in time, we'll make them part of the implementation strategy. So we will provide that. And then one of the last things on this, so really all of these items are just legal requirements. And if you have questions about them specifically after I'm finished here, I'd be happy to go back to that and explain in more detail. But the big one that's still outstanding here is Q, is the Development Area Citizens Council. And the state act does require that if you have over 100 full-time primary residents located within the district, that you have to appoint a citizens council. And it's just an advisory group, and they look at the plan and they become educated on it, and they can offer ideas if they'd like, especially with the implementation strategy. But that is a legal requirement that will have to be followed through on.
One quick question, if I may, about that. Will we need a separate council for each DDA district, or can we do it as one council, similar to as we have one EDA board?
I would think that as long as you have proper representation from both districts, that you can have one. That would be my opinion of it.
With regards to that council, is it a requirement? If we look at just the West, and it may get hard to get 9 people to show up. Is there quorum requirements, or it just has to be offered, and if they show up or not?
I would say that if we have a board that covers a citizens council that covers both, and you do your best to get as many residents from the West district as you can, and you end up with like 4 of them, and you have 8 or 9 from the East district, that would be fine. You've made the attempt to do that. Frankly, to be honest with you, it's your interpretation of the state act, and I don't think anybody's going to file a lawsuit against you for this, as long as you've made a good faith effort to do what the act is calling for. It's nice to set up, requirements in a law, and it's just not always possible to do, depending on the characteristic of the area. So you could, and then the question becomes, do you absolutely have 100 full-time primary residents in the West area? If you're pretty confident that you do, then you can't really get around that, and you have to do it. But I think a good faith effort is what I would recommend that you go after. If you can get 9 people, great. But if you can't, from the West district, if you can't get them, then I wouldn't worry too much about it. So moving forward, we have the maps that show the district. Map 1 is the West DDA district boundaries. And these maps have been prepared by the folks in the township. The GIS people have done this, a very nice job too, with Rodney's assistance. Map 2, existing land use, comes right from the master plan, and shows the different uses assigned to the parcels in the township. The future land use map also indicates what the future plans are for the various land uses in the township, which obviously both districts are a part of. Then we get into, so that's the development plan. So here's what we're planning on doing with this plan and this money. Here's where we're going to be putting our money. And when we know more about each project, we're going to put it into our into our implementation strategy. So now the tax increment financing tells folks who are reading this that this is how we plan on capturing taxes, where we have it explains how we do it. There's a graphic there that shows that we take any of the increase in the taxable base up to a certain period of time. And then after that, it all rolls back into the general funds for the taxing jurisdictions, unless, of course, it's extended. So we talk about what the current taxable value is. And we talk about if there's an increase in taxable value, how we're going to capture that. And we also mention what the base value of the real property is currently, which is 1.8 million. So each table is intended to explain something different, even though there are numbers that transfer from one table to the next. So the first table here shows you what the base value is for the district, and it shows what the taxable value will be we'll call it 20, we have 2020 here. By time we end up doing this, it will probably end up being 2021. And so we're going to make those changes later when we know exactly what the timing is. The tables are all set up in Excel, so it's pretty easy to change them. But ultimately what's going to happen is we're going to start out with our base taxable value, and then every year it's going to increase by 2%. So here we're showing that in the year 2041, the taxable value for the district, the West District, will grow to 41 million from the current, which will be around, it's 28,372 in $969. Okay, so it's going to grow to that 41 million, assuming 2% growth per year. With the way things are now, who knows? It could be 5%, it could be 8%. We just have no way of knowing what that's going to be. So we use a number that was generated over the past 20 years in the state of Michigan, which is around 2%. And we think that's still a pretty conservative number. Then we go to table 2, which is our capturable taxable value. So what it does is it says, okay, here's our taxable value, and here's the multiplier for all the millages, and here's how much tax increment revenue we can anticipate capturing beginning in the current year, starting out at 343, 318, and going all the way down to $532,483, ending in a total capture of about $9.4 million over the term of the plan. Let me just clarify something too. On these tables, these, like the dollar numbers in the project list, are estimates. Nobody's going to hold you to these numbers if they're off just by a little bit. It's intended to show whoever is looking at the plan generally what will happen with the tax capture. Nobody's going to hold you to that number. That was never the intent of doing this. The intent is to show how the tax capture works and how it builds up over time. And then if you look at table number 3, we'll skip ahead a little bit to table 3. It shows you where all the millages are coming from, the different taxing jurisdictions, and how it adds up per year, basically down to that $9.4 million number. Okay, so that's where all the taxable increment is coming from, starting with the county, Isabella County Transportation Commission, medical care facility, and so forth. These are all where you're currently capturing taxes from too. So if we go back to, let's go back to the page after table 2, where it talks about the tax increment capture. Basically what that does is it says, here's where the taxes are coming from, okay, which is detailed in table 3. And then after that, it talks about maximum, this is a state requirement, maximum amount of bonded indebtedness to be incurred. So technically you can borrow up to 80% of your projected revenues for debt service. And that's typically when you're bonding for things that you have bonded for, like sewer, water, roads, that sort of thing. And then we've indicated that the remaining duration of the tax increment financing plan is 20 years. And let me double check. Did we have 20, 30, 40? Yep, 20 years. And we just wanted to verify that. And so that's it. That's all. Oh, wait, I do want to add one other thing. So at the end, one of the other legal requirements at the end of the plan under Appendix A is our base parcel data. We're required to list the parcel information, each parcel where we're capturing taxes, tax increment from. And so we've got a long list of all those parcels that are included in the West District. And so that goes on and on and on and on. It's pretty lengthy, but it's a legal requirement that we include all that in there. The other thing we have to include, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Carmen, I didn't want to interrupt you. I'm sorry if you're, okay. I was interested in the question of the base tax year of 1985, 1.8 million. Is that something that will be a continuation from that? We're still taxing from that point, or are we setting a new base value in 2020 by reauthorizing? I'm thinking that we're still going from the original base value and we're still collecting on the increment above that.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And that's a great question because there are many DDAs out there that were underwater, as I mentioned before, as a result of the recession. And they actually dropped below their original taxable value. It'd be like if you had 1.8 and it dropped to 1.2. And so we would change their taxable value to what it currently is. So everything moving forward would be in the positive. But your taxable value, we're going to keep at the 1.8, and we're just updating what it is in the year 2021, and moving forward.
Okay.
So no, we're not touching that. That'd be a big mistake.
That sounds great. That sounds great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
On this too, the table beneath it where you have the properties listed,
Yes.
is that to be fully populated ultimately with the SEV and tax? Or is that just, we don't have numbers for some of that, which seems odd, but I didn't know if that was just because it hasn't been collected yet?
Well, actually, the only thing we really need to include in there, and we're going to talk to Rodney about this, you really only have to include the tax ID number for each property. All the owner and parcel address and all that other stuff isn't required. If you want to put it in there, it can be in there, but the only thing that the act requires is that you have the tax ID number in there for it.
Okay.
And then the other thing we're going to need to include in there is we need to have a legal description of the boundaries for the district. You obviously have one for the West District. There it is. Under Appendix B, you have the legal description. By changing the boundaries in the East District, it's a little more work for the township, but that ultimately would be included in that plan. So here we're using the existing one because we're not changing anything.
We have our assessor is currently wrestling with trying to put together a description based on the proposed boundaries of the East District. That's one of the tasks that is still in process.
Yeah, I didn't even think I could have just shared had Elena shared the screen, but so hopefully you all had your plan in front of you. So I apologize for that. It's been a long day. Started early and it's been busy.
It's making pretty good sense so far. So thanks.
Okay. So that's really the plan in a nutshell. I mean, we kept our original intent, which is to make it simple, right to the point. This is what the act calls for. This is exactly what we're doing here. We've met all the legal requirements, provided all the basic information requiring, but we've got this separate document that Elena went through with, which is our implementation strategy that really has the important information that you're going to use on a regular basis. You may never, you may never look at this plan again in 10 years or whatever the number of years might be, unless something came up where you had to double check. Rodney's more likely to use it because when projects come up, he's going to look at which projects are eligible and he may remind you how or whatever. But for the most part, you're probably not going to look at this plan very frequently. Hopefully, you'll be looking at the implementation strategy on a regular basis. Anybody have any questions about it?
How is the priority rankings determined? Medium or high?
Are you talking about the implementation strategy?
Well, the West DDA project list, everything has a priority of medium, high, almost nothing is low. But how much are we held to that? Are we going to go like, oh, this is high priority?
So the project
priorities,
in the implementation schedule, those priorities there actually date back to last May and June of 2020 during COVID. This was the foundation of this is the work we were doing, looking at future projects, and I had each of you go through a process to rank those, and so out of that they basically labeled them as low, medium, and high out of those rankings.
Okay.
And I think Elena, you can, if you would, speak to the question of can they change?
Yeah, and
or how much are we held to them?
Sure. Yeah, and those are flexible, they're liquid, they're fluid. They can be changed as needed, definitely. You know, it's something that, because you guys are the experts on these projects and planning these projects in the community, it's the kind of thing that once you receive the Excel spreadsheet, in addition to the PDFs and everything else, you'll have the capacity to update those as needed. And that's also something where you've got the estimates for cost and fees and status notes. That's also, you know, areas where as you get, you know, cost estimates and status updates, you will be able to enter that information in there as well. So if there's anything that you see that seems a little bit off at this point, we can definitely make updates, as this is just our first draft for the plan. But those, like Rodney said, are based on the proposed project timelines and priorities that were set by the team, the group.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Well, it should make reviewing the East plan a lot easier, although the implementation strategy will be a bit different, and the boundaries will be a bit different too. But you know, I think that hopefully everyone's real clear on how we've met the legal requirements, and we're actually coming up with a useful document, useful product that you can work with. So, okay.
So before we move on, if I could have Elena or Carmen kind of talk to what are the next steps in terms of this adoption process.
Okay, that's a great question. So the next step is we're required by law to send a letter out to the affected taxing jurisdictions, letting them know that we are updating the plan. It'd probably be, I think we usually say we're going to have a meeting at, you know, we set a meeting date and we invite everybody to come in and explain the plans to them, the taxing jurisdictions, answer any questions that they have and so forth. Obviously, that's going to be more critical for the East than it is going to be for the West, because we're not changing the boundaries at all. But we'll have that meeting. In fact, we could probably pull the two meetings together even if we want to, and have one for the East and the West. And the intent, once again, is just to let them know exactly what we're doing, give them an opportunity to talk to us about it and respond to it. It is a legal requirement that we do that. And then we should, you know, hopefully move forward with adopting it. And I know that, I don't know how much you talked last meeting about the conversations with the county, but it sounds like, because there's already an agreement with the county, what we will do is, the township will amend that agreement to reflect the changes in the plans is basically what would happen. Well, changes in the East plan primarily, I think what we're talking about, and possibly the West, but that would be the next step. And then there's an actual notification process, and then you have to have a resolution that gets the adoption process going, and then it goes to the township board, and they have to set a public hearing, and they have to hold it, and then they have to have another public hearing, and has to be put in, you know, noticed in the paper for each public hearing. And there also has to be, it also, at the end, it has to be published in the paper. A summary of it has to be published. The legal notices also have to be posted in, like, I joke about it, but I call it a gazillion different locations. But the state act is pretty clear that there's, like, you know, 15 or 20 different locations that they want you to post the notice. And it's really old fashioned. I mean, it's, you know, these days everything's done electronically. I mean, I can see posting it at a few locations, but to have to do as many as they call for, it doesn't happen these days, but we have to follow through with it. So that's the process. And then it's adopted ultimately it's approved by the township board, and then it's the adoption notice is printed in the paper. So we will sit down, just as one last thing, we will sit down with Rodney and work out that schedule and put together a physical schedule that you can look at that will tell you exactly when things are going to happen.
I haven't heard, excuse me, Carmen, I just wanted to ask about the commissioners, and I know last month there was some discussion about meeting with the county commissioners, and I didn't know if they had any reaction or thoughts or intentions, or if they gave blessings, or how that went, or is it too early to get into that?
I can speak to that. We did have a meeting with the County Board of Commissioners Chair, and also with Margaret McAvoy as a county administrator. And Brian was there, as well as myself and Mark Stuhlderer. It was a very good discussion. We discussed shared with them the proposal to expand the East DDA boundary, and talked about why we were looking at the various areas. There was concern about obviously loss of tax revenue. That was, I think, a significant area of concern. As Carmen mentioned, there is an existing agreement with the county whereby we share a percentage of the captured revenues, similar to the fire fund, but not a full pass-through like the fire fund is. But we do voluntarily share a percentage of the captured revenues back to the county, and that agreement has been in place for 10 years or so. And the idea would be that we would amend that agreement to reflect the changes to the East DDA district. And we've been exploring some options to address their concerns about that. So I think overall it was a very positive result, and I think that I think that the changes, especially with the amended agreement, will be favorably received.
Well, that's good news. Thanks, Rodney.
Can I add to that briefly? With regards to that agreement that was made 10 years ago with giving back essentially 25% to the county, it was pretty apparent that, they don't want that part to change. So, I mean, that would be a continuation to get their blessing at least.
Sure.
And that was actually what the question I had was related to that. So in the taxing jurisdiction tables that was put together here, are we reflecting just 75% of that capture, or are we reflecting the full amount with some of the liability then being that 25% that we've agreed to share with the county?
Yeah, no, what we want to do is include the total capture in the plan, and any sharing of tax revenues and so forth is handled outside of the plan itself as a part of an agreement in this particular case. Once you're already entered into an agreement with the taxing jurisdictions like this, you are pretty much obligated to go back to them with updates or changes or anything you want to do, regardless of whether you're required to in the act. It does say that if you have an agreement with taxing jurisdictions, you have to go back to them and work with them, basically. Which, I mean, it doesn't sound too bad.
Right. As we look at this as members of this board, we should keep that in mind when we're looking at the capture numbers then.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, what's more important really at this point is, looking at the actual numbers of what you're bringing in. That's where you're going to look at capture numbers. Even then, it's questionable whether you're going to look at the big picture. One is when you have a specific project where you're looking to do what we talked about, the project specific tax increment financing. So if you had a developer come in and say, oh, we want to do this big project here, it's a $20 million project, and we have a financing gap of $1 million, and you work on an agreement, with the developer to rebate that back over a certain period of time. I mean, that's where you're really going to get into the numbers and you're going to dig deep into it. But for the most part, you just keep an eye on what you're actually capturing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I did have, this is just bookkeeping. I caught two typos, if you want to correct them in the spreadsheet. The first is in the building. It's in the board package, page 41. I don't know what page it is in the spreadsheet. But it's the building facade and sign improvement program. The first item, the word encourage doesn't have an E in it. At the beginning of it, it does have an E in it, but at the end, not in the beginning. Is that helpful?
Yes, thank you.
And then the other one is 2 physical pages later. So this would be, forgive me, in the public infrastructure improvements. I think it's the second from the bottom, burial of overhead utility and communication lines. Oh no, my apologies. I'm checking my notes. The demolition section. There's one line item. The word obsolete is misspelled.
Thank you. I'll make that update. Thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah, and if as you're reading these, if you should see anything else like that, you know, as you're going through, just pass them on to Rodney, and then, you know, he'll communicate with us. He'll pull them together and communicate with us, because, you know, there's a lot of words and a lot of numbers, and it happens.
So always.
I wasn't judging. I just thought it'd be good to correct since I.
Yep. Nope. No pride of authorship. We just want it right.
It is always helpful to have multiple eyes on a document like this.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, how many times do you look at something over and over again and you still don't see it, and somebody else looks at it, and then it's like, oh my goodness, how did I miss it?
Any other questions for our consultants, or any other comments on the documents?
It looks like to me that we've put into words and ink on paper some of the broad-ranging ideas that we had well over a year ago and started this process, and then and we're lucky enough to have our consultants, Carmine and Elena, to help us develop this plan, and it looks like it has become a reality and is ready to move on to actually doing things in the real world. And so I congratulate them, and it looks like we've accomplished what we set out to do. I don't see really any glaring omissions, and it looks like we've really brought in even more ideas and more things that we hadn't considered at the beginning when we started this. So really it's expanded. It seems even like a more powerful document and concept than what we started out with. So I just seems real good. I don't see any reason to try and derail what we're doing. Keep it moving. Thanks.
Yeah,
Well done. Well done.
And thank you. If I could just respond to that too. We're only as good as a staff team that we're working with, and you know, so much of the information and so forth has come through them, and they've been awesome to deal with. So you know, it's as much been a part of their effort as our effort. They've done a really good job, and one of the better communities we've worked with putting DDA plans together. So hats off to them. They've done a really good job.
I would agree that this is one of the better communities you've worked with. I might be biased.
Hey, Tom Kiko, I'm here. A couple comments. I never realized Brian Melky was such an English guru teacher.
I failed English my first time, Tom.
I just blow through the thing. I know what they meant to say, so it's good enough for me. But no, but overall, my hat's off to you guys, staff and the CIB team. I think this is fantastic. Great document. I mean, considering the COVID challenges, and you guys pulled this off with these online meetings. I remember doing the survey way back in the day. I was struggling to wrap my mind around how you guys were going to pull this off, but you did. Looks great. Really appreciate it. And look forward to seeing the East documents. And what is the schedule on the East DDA program?
Our plan is to have that available to review for the next board meeting.
Okay.
And thank you for the compliments. We very much appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, what Elena doesn't realize though is that the next board meeting, I'm going to be on vacation that week, so it's all her.
He does now.
That's right.
Just a quick question on the schedule. Carmen, you had mentioned, is it 2 public hearings ultimately?
Yes.
Thank you. I only ask that because I know that's always a bottleneck as far as timing because of the posting requirements, et cetera. So time is short.
Yeah, we're still good. I mean, there's kind of a cutoff date, and we're ahead of that, so we'll be okay. And that includes you always want to have that extra meeting in December as kind of a backup in case anything happens you didn't expect, and it's a legal notice didn't go in properly or something happens. The newspaper forgot to print it or whatever it might be. We always try to give ourselves one more meeting in the year as kind of a backup, but we're looking to get it moving forward sooner rather than later. And I mean, we could even potentially run them on separate timelines if we wanted to send the West ahead and have the other one follow up, but and then you're double noticing it. It's something we'll talk to Rodney about, but yeah, I think we're still okay time wise with the time frame we've got left.
Thanks.
Do we have anything else for CIB? Hearing no comments, I really appreciate the update. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
And moving on to agenda item 10. Updates from the director or director comments. What do you got there, Rodney?
Well, thank you. Just a few things. One, just to make you aware, the Board of Trustees will be holding their first in-person meeting since I think March of 2020. They'll be doing that next week. We had to go through and check all the equipment in the boardroom and replace batteries and all that sort of thing. But we will be coming to a point where we will be needing to bring the EDA board back into in-person meetings as well. Currently we are operating under the changes to the Open Meetings Act that allow us to do this. That is also a requirement of those changes is a county Board of Commissioners resolution declaring an emergency situation. The county has not indicated that they are making any change to that, but interestingly, the County Board of Commissioners is also moving to an in-person meeting. So no matter what, our ability to do this will run out in December. So if not sooner, the state act, Open Meetings Act allowance ends with December 31st. So just be aware that we will eventually need to be heading back to in-person meetings. These have been very useful and very helpful. The format seems to work well for folks. So I wish it could continue indefinitely, but if you have any concerns about moving back into an in-person meeting format, give me a ring or send me an email and we can chat about those concerns and see if we can find a way to address them. At this point, our August meeting will still be in this format. And update you at that point if I've heard anything's changed. But my intention, my recommendation would be to keep things in this format while we can do it, because it seems to work well for all concerned. if you'd like to talk about that more, we can certainly include it as an agenda item on a future meeting as well. The other item I want to talk about was M20 corridor, the East Pickard Road corridor. The State Highway Department is vigorously pursuing their plans for that rebuild project. I think as we've talked before, they're intending to rebuild East Pickard Road from Mission Street in the city east to just east of the interchange. It will include putting in roundabouts at the interchange with US 127. It will also include a complete rebuild of the road, curb to curb, and also a complete rebuild of storm drainage underneath the road, and some pretty substantial damage to our underground irrigation system. I've been meeting with MDOT representatives to figure out exactly what that will be. One of the problems we have is that their primary storm drain runs along the north side of the road in the median, right underneath our irrigation, along the north side. And they are intending to abandon that storm drain and build a new one within the roadway, underneath the roadway. So their initial plans had been to pull that existing storm drain pipe out, which would basically wipe out our underground irrigation on that north side. We've been talking about that and I've asked them to look into options to abandon that in place, basically fill it with grout to stabilize it. I've helped MDOT to understand that our underground irrigation is not, like a private system where, but Burger King has some plastic pipe out front and a few sprinkler heads. I've been helping them change their mindset a little bit to look at this as a public utility. As far as anybody is aware, there is no other community in the state of Michigan that has this kind of a system. So it's a new experience for MDOT.
Oh, wow.
To deal with this kind of a system for this long of a length that it is. So anyway, I've continued to push for them to minimize the damage done, and we've also been trying to talk about ways to mitigate some of the damage. There will unfortunately be damage because they're expecting to have to at least to dig in 2 feet beyond the curb because they have under drains and such behind the curb that all will have to come out. Beyond that, we'll see. They've, of course, are also taking out all the driveways along both sides of the road, which will affect our system as well. So more information on that, but as I said, I've been pushing MDOT to look at this more as a utility. They've been comfortable doing that with our street lighting system. They will also have to remove some of the street lights and wiring, and their intention is to put those back. But the irrigation so far is up in the air. So we'll have more information on that as it becomes available. I'm meeting with them regularly, and they are also looking at. We talked a lot about pedestrian access along that road and improving pedestrian safety and access. And they have initiated a study which they did not initially intend to do. That will be kind of looking at various design alternatives for the road. And they had a study on Mission Street, the Mission Street portion of the city. They basically have now expanded that, included our portion as well. And so they'll be evaluating various alternatives and coming back with recommendations on that over the next few months. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have about those things. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, Rodney.
Excuse me. Bacon here. Just in regards to actually meeting at the Township Hall, I won't fall asleep on my couch at 4:15 if they're there.
All right. That is an important consideration.
I do
Rodney,
think, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
you just answered the 2 questions I was going to bring up. I wanted to talk about the in-person meeting. Did a good explanation there, as well as the M20 corridor update. Does anybody else have any comments?
I do think that, I just want to mention that the Zoom meeting has been seemingly very productive, gotten a lot done, and just want to thank Rodney again for all his technology requirements to pull this off, and did a very good job. It's worked out well. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you. Would you like to, I've mentioned the idea of continuing these for as long as we're able to. This really is a decision that of the board, and I apologize for kind of stepping on that. Would you like to include maybe on your next agenda a discussion about that, and whether you would like to move back to in-person meetings sooner or later? That's certainly something that can be discussed if you'd like.
I think that may be a good idea. Shall we discuss the next meeting?
Yeah, I think I go along with that too. We'll have some more information from the Board of Trustees after they have their meeting too.
Mhm.
But I think it sounds like a good agenda item to talk about in case we may have to return to this option in the future as well.
Yeah, there's advantages to meeting in person, I know, but given our quorum batting average, people can call in from home. I think our odds of having a quorum are a little better, so I'm indifferent.
Yeah.
So
Very true, Tom.
it'd be worth bringing up.
Okay, we'll include it on your next agenda as a discussion item then, and we'll see where we go.
Anybody else? Hearing no more comments, next meeting's Tuesday, August 17th. And look forward to hearing from everybody there. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Good night. Good night.
Night.
Good night, everyone.
Call adjourned 6:12. Thank you.
Good meeting.
All right.